Hi, this is Bonny Meyer, DiVine Conversations. I'm here with Stephen Hohenrieder, who's going to be sharing with us his wisdom and knowledge about cover crop. We're currently planting cover crop in Bonny's Vineyard, and he's going to tell us why we want to do that. Thank you for being here with me, Stephen.
It's great to be with you. We've just finished harvest and have recently sowed the seeds of a cover crop. We often try and seed cover crops right before the first rains, and this year it just so happened that we did exactly that. Often we think about cover crops as being the green carpet that blankets the Napa Valley during the spring, or the mustard. But from a vineyard perspective, we're also thinking about other things like soil, microbes, insects, water, erosion, and the relationship with the vines. And so as we think about these things in relationship to one another, it's not that any one of them is important, but it's how all of them relate to one another. So from a soil perspective, we're thinking about how to build organic matter in the soil, which provides a whole bunch of different benefits, not only to life under the soil, but also in supporting the vine. We're looking at building nutrients in the soil. So we'll plant cover crops that may fix nitrogen or provide something else that vine needs or that soil needs in order to do its job. And in building fertility, we're supporting other type of life forms in that soil. As we think about microbes and we think about insects, we're thinking about those that are below the ground and above the ground. Below the ground, we think about things like microbial biodiversity, which creates health in that soil. As we think about mycorrhiza, which is essentially pathways under the soil, we're thinking about how the plants are able to uptake nutrients that are provided by the soil and the health of those pathways. And that comes into play as we think about disking and other things that can break up that soil structure in those pathways. Above ground, we think about beneficial insects. We think about pollinators and other bugs that help build the health of that ecosystem. And at the same time, we try not to plant things that would actually bring in insects that are going to harm the vines. And sometimes we'll even plant plants in what we call insectaries alongside of the vineyards to draw those insects that are harmful out of the vineyard and attract them to other areas. Water is a big factor as we think about cover crops. As we build soil organic matter, every 1% increase of soil organic matter in an acre of soil has an additional 16 to 20,000 gallons of water holding capacity. So as we think about that in the context of drought in California, it's that much more water we're able to store in the soil underground that becomes available to that plant later in the summer. And conversely, when it rains hard, that soil organic matter is able to act like a sponge and soak up the water that falls on the ground, rather than having it run off into a creek, which can't be used later on. And so our goal in the relationship between water and cover crops is really to understand what we're trying to accomplish later in the season. And as we try to irrigate less, make more water available to those vines in ways that will help it thrive. As we think about erosion, there are really two primary types of erosion that come to mind. One is wind erosion. So if we have a cover crop on the ground, it prevents the wind from blowing our precious topsoil away. And as we think about water, whether it's a big storm or otherwise, with a cover crop on the ground, we're able to avoid it washing away that topsoil. And so it creates a protective barrier that not only keeps the soil from drying out as the sun hits it, but also keeps it from washing or blowing away. And lastly, we're thinking about the relationship between that cover crop and the vines. Every decision we make in the vineyard has a whole bunch of other factors that end up dictating those decisions. And so as we think about planting a cover crop, we have to think about where we plant it, how many rows we plant, whether we alternate rows. Because what we're trying to do is either stress or not stress the vine in some cases, because those cover crops create competition for water and nutrients that end up impacting that vine one way or another. So that competition can be very positive, or it can actually be too stressful on the vine. And so we try to find a mix of what will be most beneficial for the vineyard. So cover crops are beautiful. We all love seeing them in the spring and the summer, but as hopefully you can see now, there's so many other decisions that go into our plans to plant a cover crop.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for sharing what you know about soil health and cover crops.
Thanks for including me.
You're very welcome. Now we know that cover crops are do a little bit more than or something beautiful to look at. This is Bonny Meyer and Stephen Hohenrieder, DiVine Conversations. I'll see you next time.